My name is Sarah. I am 32 years old. My life has been filled with pain, fear, and loneliness. Every night, I cry myself to sleep, wondering why my life turned out this way. But I wasn't always like this. Once, I was just a little girl who believed in happiness. I grew up in a small town. My father was strict and my mother was silent. I remember the nights filled with shouting, the sound of glass breaking, and my mother's quiet sobs in the dark. I wanted to help her, but I was just a child. I learned early that silence was safer than speaking up. I spent my childhood walking on eggshells, trying to avoid my father's wrath, trying to protect my mother from the storm that raged inside our house. But no matter how quiet I was, no matter how much I tried to be the perfect daughter, the violence never stopped. When I was 18, I met Daniel. He was charming, kind at least in the beginning. He made me feel special, like I was finally important to someone. I thought I had found my escape, but I was wrong. His love came with conditions, with anger, with bruises that I had to hide. I told myself he would change. He never did. At first, it was small things, a harsh word, a cold shoulder, a grip on my wrist that was just a little too tight. But then the slaps came. The yelling turned into threats, and soon, the person I loved became the person I feared the most. The first time he hit me, I was in shock. He apologized, begged for forgiveness, and promised it would never happen again. I believed him. I wanted to believe him. But the apologies became empty words, and the pain became my reality. I was trapped in a cycle of fear and hope, never knowing which version of him I would face each day. He controlled what I wore, who I talked to, where I went. I lost myself in his shadows, my voice silenced under his rage. Years passed, and I lost myself. I stopped seeing my friends, stopped calling my family. I felt like a ghost, a shadow of the girl I used to be. Every night I cried alone, wondering if this was all my life would ever be. I was afraid to leave, afraid of what he might do, afraid of being alone, but I wasn't living, I was merely surviving. And deep inside, a small voice whispered, "You deserve more than this." One day, he pushed me too far. I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize myself. My eyes were empty, my spirit broken. That's when I knew I had to escape. I waited until he left for work, packed my things, and walked out the door. My heart pounded, but for the first time in years, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: hope. I went to a shelter, trembling with fear, expecting him to find me at any moment. But he didn't, and that was the moment I knew I was free. I moved to a new city with nothing but a small suitcase and a broken soul. It wasn't easy. There were nights I wanted to go back, nights I felt like I was nothing without him. But I kept going. I found a job, a small apartment, and slowly I started rebuilding my life. I was still scared, but I was free. The first time I laughed, truly laughed, I cried afterward because I had forgotten what joy felt like. Each day, I fought against the memories, against the fear that still lingered in my heart. Healing is not a straight path. Some days I feel strong. Other days I am overwhelmed by the memories. But I remind myself that I survived. I remind myself that I deserve happiness. I am learning to live without fear, to love myself again, to find joy in the small things. I started therapy, joined a support group, and found comfort in the stories of other survivors. I wasn't alone. I was never alone. I still cry sometimes, but now my tears are different. They are not just tears of pain, but also of relief. I made it out. I am still standing, and I am not alone. There are so many others like me, trapped in silence, waiting for a way out. To them, I say this: there's hope. You are stronger than you think. You are worthy of love, of happiness, of a life free from fear. Will my life ever be truly happy? I don't know. But I do know one thing: I will never let fear control me again. If my story touched you, please like, subscribe, and share. Someone out there might need to hear this. And if you're struggling, please know you are not alone. There is always a way out. There's always hope. 10 years ago, I lived in a small town. I was only 19 years old. I was young and full of dreams. There was a man in town named Ryan. Ryan was charming. Many people liked him. I liked him too. He was 25 years old, older than me, but I didn't care. I thought he was kind and special, but people warned me about him. My father said, "Stay away from Ryan." My neighbor said, "He is not a good man," but I didn't listen. I believed in him. One Friday night, there was a festival in town. My friends and I wanted to go. My mother said, "It's better to stay home," but I insisted. "I'll be careful," I promised. She finally agreed, but was still worried. The festival was beautiful. There were lights, music, and laughter. People danced and ate delicious food. Ryan was there too. He smiled at me. My heart raced. He asked me to walk with him. I was excited. I said yes. We walked away from the crowd, down a quiet street. The night was peaceful. The moon was bright. Everything felt magical. But then Ryan took my hand and led me to a dark alley. I felt uneasy. "Let's go back," I said, but he didn't listen. He stepped closer. I tried to pull away. "Ryan, stop," I said. He didn't like that. His face changed. "Don't be boring," he said. Then he turned away and left me alone in the dark. I was scared. The streets were empty. The wind was cold. I had no choice but to walk home alone. My legs hurt. My heart ached. I reached home, locked my door, and cried. I had been wrong about Ryan. The next day, I told my friend what happened. She sighed. "Ryan always does this," she said. "He hurt me too." I was shocked. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked. "I thought you knew," she replied. That night, I learned a lesson. I became stronger. I moved on. I stopped thinking about Ryan. 2 years later, I moved to the city. I worked in a small bakery. Every morning, I walked to work. I loved the smell of fresh bread. I loved watching people start their day. One morning, the sky turned gray. Soon, it started to rain. I didn't have an umbrella. I stood under a shop roof, waiting. Suddenly, a man walked toward me. He had a black umbrella. "Need some help?" he asked. I looked at him. He was tall, with kind eyes. He smiled. I nodded. "Thank you," I said. We walked together to the bakery. His name was Ethan. He worked in a bookstore nearby. "Can I see you again?" he asked before leaving. I smiled. "Maybe," I said. The next day, Ethan came to the bakery. He bought a loaf of bread. The next day, he came again. Soon, he came every day. We talked about books, travel, and life. Ethan was funny. He made me laugh. One day, he asked, "Do you want to go for coffee?" I said yes. We went to a small cafe near my bakery. It was warm and cozy. Ethan told me about his family. He had an older brother. He loved to write. He wanted to publish a book. I told him about my life too. I was an only child. My parents lived far away. I missed them sometimes. We started meeting often. We went to the park, to the library, and to museums. I was happy. Months passed and our bond grew stronger. We started taking long evening walks, sometimes sitting by the river, talking about our dreams. Ethan told me about his passion for photography. He loved capturing moments, freezing time through his lens. I shared my love for baking, how I dreamed of opening my own little bakery one day. Ethan always encouraged me. "You'll do it," he said. "I believe in you." One day, he surprised me with a notebook. "Write your dreams here," he said. I opened it, and on the first page, he had written, "The journey begins now. Tears welled in my eyes. No one had ever supported me like this before. I realized that Ethan was different. He wasn't just kind. He was someone who truly cared about my happiness. But one day, Ethan stopped coming. I waited for him. A week passed, then 2 weeks. I felt sad. Where is he? I wondered. I wanted to call him, but I didn't have his number. One evening, it started to rain again. I walked home feeling lonely. Suddenly, I saw a black umbrella. It was Ethan. He was waiting outside my building. My heart jumped. "Where were you?" I asked. "I'm sorry," he said. "I had to take care of my brother. He wasn't well." I smiled. "I'm glad you're back," I said. Ethan held the umbrella over me. "Let's take a walk," he said. We walked in the rain. The city lights shimmered on the wet streets. The air smelled fresh. I felt warm inside. After that, we spent more time together. Ethan made me believe in love again. He was kind and patient. One evening, as we sat by the river, he took my hand. "I want to be with you forever," he said. My heart pounded. Tears filled my eyes. "Me too," I whispered. Years passed. Now I am 29 years old. Ethan and I are married. We live in a small house with a garden. I finally opened my bakery, and Ethan published his first photography book. Life is beautiful. Sometimes when it rains, we take our black umbrella and go for a walk. I think about the day we met. Life is full of surprises. Sometimes a simple thing like an umbrella can change everything. Thank you for watching and spending time with me today. I hope you enjoyed the story and found it helpful in your English learning journey. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more stories and lessons. Let me know your thoughts or questions in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next video. If you enjoyed the story, please like, subscribe, and share.